I'm late. I apologize. I was off campus and not a good idea to leave the building. But we're here now, and I'd like to move forward, beginning with items 1 and 2.
Item 1 is communication from the mayor regarding the appointment of Dr. Erica Jacquez to the Housing Authority for the City of Los Angeles.
Okay. Let's hear from Ms. Jacquez. Please join us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to be considered as Commissioner for the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. I want to thank Mayor Garcetti for his commitment on this issue, as well as the leadership from Councilmember Cedillo, my Councilmember Huizar, as well as Harris Dawson, Fuentes, and Price. I am very humbled to have this opportunity. First, let me start off by saying that I have had the ability to serve my beloved City of Los Angeles at the state, local, and federal level. While working for Los Angeles County Supervisor Molina, one of the major issues we dealt with was the issue of the children living on Skid Row and the real issues of the individuals and these children that were dying on the streets. And one of the things that we did to tackle the issue is we put together a rapid response team. So understanding the need for dedication to help individuals off of Skid Row as well as address the issue of homelessness is really important to me, working at the local, seeing it firsthand at the local level. And then I was very fortunate to be appointed to the administration and worked for Secretary Castro and Secretary Donovan, who we came in at an opportunity where we had the largest housing crisis within my lifetime. And it was very interesting to address the issue of homelessness, eradicating the issue of veteran homelessness, in addition to also assisting with the recovery through the American Recovery Act. And that was actually a great opportunity for me to see firsthand how the federal government can step in and actually revitalize communities and address this issue. So learning what I've learned so far, I realized that shelter is a basic need and not a luxury. And as now I'm back in the city of Los Angeles, every day when I do go running, I run from the Staples Center down to Avera Street, and I still see it firsthand. Working closely at the federal level with the secretary, with the president, understanding the importance of eradicating homelessness was the number one priority. Seeing all the federal dollars come down and then actually seeing it firsthand, how we still have a major issue. And that's something that I really want to focus on if appointed to this commission. So one of the other issues we wanted to address is, we all know the state of California as well as the city of Los Angeles, the need for affordable housing is a major issue. In addition to that, understanding that our fellow residents are 1 to 2 paychecks away from becoming homeless. That's a major issue. And also seeing the backlogs on the need for housing and affordable housing is another issue. So that's something that I really want to focus on and dedicate my efforts to, is working with the commissions to see how we can find some kind of solution so we can actually offer a hand up and not a handout. And I'm very excited to be a part of it. Also very excited to also serve a mayor who's focusing on eradicating homeless veterans. My father's a disabled veteran, and this is an issue that I hold very closely to my heart. So with that in mind and my background at state, local, federal, addressing this particular issue, which is so important, it's a basic quality of life issue, I'm very humbled and very honored to be considered a commissioner for the HACLA Commission. Thank you so much.
Gentlemen, colleagues?
Dr. Jacquez, thank you for your willingness to serve on this commission. You're going to bring extraordinary experience to a commission and a group of people that I think are doing really good work. I think the Housing Authority, for better or for worse, has to deal with the constraints of, I shouldn't say constraints, has to deal with sort of what's budgeted. And from your work with Secretary Castro, what do you think, and maybe you don't have all the answers for us today, I don't expect that you do, but what do you think sort of the 1, 2, 3 things are that they could be doing, or that, more importantly, the City of Los Angeles could be doing to aid in the mission of making sure that we've got housing for all?
Right. Actually, it's really interesting looking back at my tenure with administration. You had no stronger advocate than myself working at HUD, always demanding, what about Los Angeles? What about Los Angeles? What about Los Angeles? And it comes down to the basic model of working interagency-wide. You can't just throw dollars out as far as for housing. You need to address the issue of mental health issues, whether it's veterans issues, whether it's education issues. It's a holistic approach. It's too much of an issue just to provide somebody a house. Realize that doesn't work. You don't just provide a voucher and everything's great. It's an opportunity where you have to step in, provide assistance, and so to make sure that they're also not in a position where they're continuously sustained on the services. It's a matter of coming in, assessing the issue from the children to the parents, and figuring out how we can help them thrive in that situation, but also progress so that we can create other opportunities for other folks to come in. So I definitely would say it has to be a rapid response approach and not just a singular issue because it's so systemic.
I'm heartened to hear that because I think very much along the lines that you do, that it's not just the housing, it's how it is that we provide support. You know, I was listening to a radio interview this morning about a gentleman who had been on Skid Row, homeless for 15 years, is now a counselor there, and he pinpoints it simply that it's really our ability to deal with addiction that I think will help keep. There's a lot of, I think the point that they were trying to make is that there's a lot of ways that people become homeless, but how people most assuredly stay homeless is because of addiction. And so understanding that HACLA's mission is really housing, how do we begin to expand their scope or hours to figure out how to intercede in those situations? Because I think this notion of these solutions, and it's not to be disparaging, but the silo approach just isn't working. And so how is it that we marry all of that? I know it's a really broad question, but to me it seems that we're thinking along the same vein. We're going to have to be more collaborative in our efforts.
Most definitely. I definitely see it as it takes a village approach. You can't just, because I do see the silos. I did see what we were able to accomplish at the county level, at the federal level, and at the local city level. So it's more of a collaboration approach. In addition to government, it's also businesses. It's also community residents. It's not just an issue of just government's going to fix it. It has to be an approach where the entire community is on board. So you have to have corporations, you have to have government dollars, but you also have to have folks stepping in so that you actually create a pipeline of those who've succeeded to come back and actually, you know, come back and help bring the next folks up. So it's more of a short answer for now, and I'll definitely get into it, and I'll research it as one of my number one priorities. But I definitely see it does have to take a village approach. It cannot just be a singular, everybody working in silos. That doesn't work.
Right. Well, thank you for your service. It's not often that I get very excited about these appointments, but I'm exceptionally impressed by your capability, and please look back at us as a resource. And so I'm happy to make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve this candidate.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments, questions?
Yeah, just one quick question. Again, I too thank you for your service and your commitment. And you come at an interesting time with an interesting set of skills. I mean, leaving the healthcare world, well, not leaving it, but certainly with a foot in the healthcare world as you look at these public housing issues. What parallels, what opportunities to intersect, what challenges do we have with the healthcare disparities on one hand and housing disparities? So how can we kind of bridge those two?
No, definitely. I'm a subscriber of Maslow hierarchy of needs, and if you don't have the basics, shelter, to me, healthcare is one of them. You don't have a healthy community, and you can't thrive. And that's one of the things about coming back home. I wanted to work for an organization who believed in investing in the underinsured and uninsured, the most vulnerable population. I've always been an advocate for those who are a vulnerable population. And it's the same population. If you look at it across the board, as far as those who need health care, we're currently working on the whole issue of the ACA coming up, and Ultimate has been a great organization. We were, the past 2 years, #1 in enrollments. It comes down to the same thing. It comes down to housing, it comes down to healthcare, and it comes down to education. So somehow marrying with all the other health organizations to make sure that we have a healthy community, healthy residents, so that they can progress is definitely a need. So I see my background in housing and also in healthcare. They are symbiotic, the way I see it.
Thank you.
Yes? Well, obviously, I'm a big fan, so I'm not going to say anything. So I'm not accused of bias, but we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
So will be the order.
Mr.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment cards on this?
Public comment cards on item number 1. I don't see anything that says general public comment.
Thank you.
Here we go. Thank you. Hit them right under me. Yes, so let's hear from Wayne from Encino, Brian Barajas, and Herman.
Well, first off, I think she's very competent. I think one of the things that startled me was nothing in the bio that I read reflected anything what I assumed she was going to be, just another run-of-the-mill, politician. I think what she started off with was the fact that kids are they're dying on the street. There's also a form of resolution in her that I sense that she was a person or she is, and a person that's qualified to really help people. And so that's very good because we need more people like that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Wayne.
Yes, much improved. We get rid of Shane Goldsmith. What does he know about the ghetto? But now we have somebody that knows about the ghetto. The most important things to know about the ghetto. You just have to go outside and see all the homeless tents, 9th Street, right in your district, Cedillo, across from MacArthur Park and Lafayette Park. They got all these people living in tents. Isn't that housing? And now we have somebody who's going to fix all the problems of all of this homelessness and housing. We have found the genius. We've searched for 20 years, but now Erica Jacquez is going to lead us out of homelessness and going to forever stop the problem. Thank you, committee, for bringing the genius to the commission.
Herman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I heard all the wonderful comments, and Mr. Barras probably hit the keynote of that, but I'd just like to remind you that, again, since you're going to be serving the public and the situation and the
Address
condition.
the committee. Address the committee.
If you could instruct, and thank you, Mr. President. Here, he's got to
Oh,
instruct
sorry, Chip.
through the chair.
Yeah, sorry, Chipmunk. We have a mechanism to ensure that many questions and conflicts should not go unanswered when it comes to the integrity of the homelessness in our future. The situation that you created, Mr. Fuentes, Chipmunk, not this other body of members on your staff right now. That's why I can say it up front. So, again, I hope that she does not
And the issue.
interfere with the conflicts of the city charter, not to discriminate any further, because as mentioned, she says she has the ability. Well, we're going to find out, because in 30 days, I don't see one good improvement. That means you
Thank
failed.
you. Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the city. Congratulations.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Item number 2.
Item number 2, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Oswaldo Lopez to the Affordable Housing Commission.
Yes. If you're still interested, Mr. Lopez, please come forward.
Yes, I
At your own choice.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Honorable Councilmember Cedillo, Chair Cedillo, Honorable members of the Affordable Housing Committee, Councilmember Fuentes, Councilmember Price, Councilmember Harris-Dawson, and my very own Councilmember in Council District 14, Councilmember Jose Huizar. Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. I'd like to begin today by thanking Mayor Eric Garcetti for his recommendation to have me appointed to the Affordable Housing Commission. As an immigrant in the late 1970s to this great city of ours, the City of Angels, I've had the opportunity to live in various communities throughout Los Angeles and Los Angeles County, from Echo Park to the Mid-Wilshire area, lived in South Los Angeles off of 72nd and Broadway, lived in the Pico Union area off of Rampart, and then spent the majority portion of my young life in the unincorporated part of East Los Angeles. And then about 12 years ago, moved to the wonderful community of El Sereno within Council District 14, which I now call home. Each area has a very unique and rich cultural quality to its makeup. However, there are common themes with each community that we all share. We all want access to a quality education for our children, an opportunity for economic growth, sustainability and viability, access to quality health care, and most importantly, all are directly linked by being able to provide access to affordable housing. I spent 22 years of my professional career working for the City of Los Angeles. I was previously employed by the Community Development Department. which is now known as the Economic and Workforce Development Department. I came in 1995, immediately following the Northridge earthquake, and we worked throughout the city in what is, they're now known as Family Source Centers, but they first began as earthquake recovery centers, and we had centers geographically and strategically placed throughout all of Los Angeles. I also managed the City of Los Angeles, I managed the City of Los Angeles Youth Source Center, which is part of the Youth Source system, located in the community of Boyle Heights in the east side. A constant theme that continued to resonate and resonated throughout my work within the capacity of these two agencies that I worked for in both programs is that through the continuous interaction with our clients, the continuous interaction with our youth providers and constituents that requested our services and needed our services was a consistent theme that in order to live in Los Angeles, we had to have affordable housing addressed. And my goal within the commission is to establish good collaborative working relationships with the fellow commissioners, to listen to the affordable housing concerns of our constituents throughout the City of Los Angeles, to collaborate with the city agencies and departments responsible in working with the Affordable Housing Commission in the initiation of policies and programs that favorably impact housing development, to continue to encourage public and private partnerships in promoting housing preservation and production, and along those lines to advise the mayor, the city council, and the committee with respect to the city housing needs. Early in my life, when I was 7 years old, I experienced the issue of affordable housing. I lived with my mom, just her and I, when we lived off of the Rampart area, and we actually rented a closet. It was a walk-in closet because that's all that my mom can own. What's interesting to see today is that although times have changed, the minimum wage has gone up prior to the recession, and now that we're recovering, there's economic viability once again. Those that are most in need continue to experience those circumstances. I've encountered through my tenure and through the volunteer work that I do, still working with families that are living in closets, that are living in multi-shared homes because they cannot afford to have a place that they call home for their families on their own. And my goal is to continue to work with the residents, to continue to work with our constituents, to work with the agencies, and to work with all of you to identify strategies where affordable housing will remain at the forefront so that every family in the City of Los Angeles that lives and works and wants to pay their tax dollars into our community has an affordable place to live. So with that, thank you very much for your consideration. Thank you very much to the mayor for considering me, and I'd like to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Let me ask my colleagues any questions, any comments. Mr. Huizar?
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to commend the mayor for making a great appointment here to this commission. I've watched Mr. Lopez work at our Family Youth Center in Boyle Heights, and he has been someone who's committed, passionate about the work, passionate about commuting, passionate about providing people with opportunities. So I know that you would bring the same focus and attention to this commission, and obviously it's a commission that we would hope to work collaboratively with this committee and the city as we confront the issue of how do we provide more affordable housing for everyone in the city. So I think we have before us someone who's committed his life to the betterment of all in the city, and I wouldn't be more pleased to see someone like Mr. Lopez appointed to this commission, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Others?
I too just want to welcome you, Mr. Lopez, and salute your prior service in government and in the private sector. One of the issues associated, of course, with affordable housing are the expiration of the affordable housing covenants that could be a size that I hear 10,000 or so over the next 8 or 9 years, 1,000 of which will probably be in my district. But any thoughts about an approach we should be taking in terms of providing funding for those covenants or other strategies that could be useful in lessening the potential damage that will occur if covenants expire and families are not without this resource?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Price. At this moment, I'd like to research it just a little bit more. One of the things that I do not like to do is to speak without having a full knowledge of the area, and I don't want to just offer a strategy or a recommendation. If you would provide me with the opportunity to get back to you, I'd be happy to answer that question for you.
I appreciate your attention to that. Thank you. And I'm happy to support the nomination.
Second that.
Yes, as I'm very happy to support the recommendation. Also, big fan of this young man who has great skills and capacity, and somehow has evaded my hire, but nonetheless welcomed, getting closer to the city. Before we start, though, with the cards, I want to be very clear that a member of the public wishing to speak on more than one item at a single meeting shall limit his or her remarks on agenda items to a total of 5 minutes per meeting. We are invoking Council Rule 7 for this Housing Committee meeting today. So with that, I call up Wayne and Herman. Wayne and Herman.
So let's see here. Oh, this is good. This is our version of ethnic cleansing. On the Affordable Housing Commission, this Mr. Joel Jacinto was on the committee, but you found out he's not Latino. He's a Filipino. So you didn't know that. So then they said, well, we got to get him the hell out of there because
Sir, your comments need to be addressed as to whether or not
Oh,
you are
okay. You want to
recommending-
cry? Okay.
Mr. Oswaldo Lopez to the Affordable Housing Commission. They got rid of the Asian and they put Latino on the panel because his mommy lived in a closet. You have to live in a closet as a child. They put me in a closet for 2 days because I
Sir,
wouldn't do
your
my
comments are not
homework.
germane to the item on
So,
the agenda.
a
Do you
closet-
have a
Thank you.
recommendation?
A closet is a
Next.
house. More closets.
Next, we have Herman.
Great. Let me get over here, though, because I don't want Chipmunk to get mad. But regarding the evidence behind this motion, I cannot say I am more approved of it. I know Ozzy, and he knows me for years, well past 10 years. That's how badass we are in the community of Boyle Heights. That's where I'm from. Boyle Heights, Chipmunk. The east side. That's where we roll. And we roll with partnership, and we run with a passion for our abilities to tremendously create things like Hazard Park, and which is one of my pet peeves that I've renovated under the American Disability Act for all homeless
Mr. Herman,
vets.
can you please address?
And
the
Ozzy and
agenda
I,
item?
we just roll that way. That's the point. And I'm glad that he got nominated for this position. I'm sure he's going to do well with it and take some of our suggestions and not be punked. And at the same time, he will avoid the tremendous corruption always involved with affordable housing and not sustainable housing.
Okay. All right. Okay. We have a motion?
There was a motion and a second, but I'm reconsidering it now, Mr. Chair.
To more height-centric? Yes, sir. Move.
I'd move, and both of you work for Ultimate, correct? So keep sending Ultimate folks to the commission.
Well, that's what Ultimate says to us. So be the order.
That takes us to item number 3, which is the Los Angeles Housing
Thank you very much.
Community Investment Department report.
Congratulations. Can we move to item 4 and then do 3 on after that?
Of course. Item 4, motion Bonin, Wesson, Koretz, directing City Planning Department with assistance of the City Attorney in consultation with the Office of Finance regarding short-term rentals of housing in the city.
Okay. Who's coming up?
Hi, good afternoon. Ken Bernstein here along with Claire Bowen and Matthew Glesney from Department of City Planning. We very much look forward to working with the council.
Rush, you want to come up and join us? I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. As I think you know, this item was heard in Plum Committee last week, and considerable testimony was taken. We received initial direction from the Plum Committee to convene 3 listening sessions or public opportunities for comment before bringing back a proposed ordinance. Our department is prepared to work closely with the council and sponsors of the motion to host those sessions and to bring policy recommendations back expeditiously to the council. So we're here today just to continue to listen and take any further instructions the committee may have.
Are those sessions scheduled yet?
Not yet. We are working on getting those arranged. They will be three regional sessions in different sections of the city. We hope to have those scheduled within the next several weeks.
Thank you.
Here to answer any questions you may have, Councilman, on the matter. Airbnb, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I can share with you what we've been doing to this point relative to the enforcement. As you know, we have the enforcement arm of Airbnb, and then, of course, there is the housing issues that we have across the city. Under the Systematic Code Inspection Program, we have a complaint program that we do respond to illegal usage of multifamily units in the city. We respond to those upon receipt. So far, since January of this year, we've received 52 complaints for illegal usage of multifamily units. Of those, 37, or approximately 73%, are within Council District 11. We've been able to get some of the property owners to return those units or buildings back to their intended use. However, we're not necessarily certain that the property owners aren't returning it back to the Airbnb model thereafter. I will share with you that the department is doing everything it can to bring those properties back to the initial intended use. The ultimate remedy is referring it to the city attorney's office. We've had ongoing dialogue with the city attorney's office as to how they could perhaps require these property owners to bring them into code. At this point, the department is unable to develop sufficient information, enough data to be able to provide to the city attorney's office for prosecution. We have been working with the police department to potentially explore the opportunity of having them do investigative or background purchases of units or through a credit card they would have, and that would be enough proof then for the city attorney's office thereafter. You'd have to speak with the city attorney's office as to how they want to handle it thereafter. Essentially, what we're dealing with is a violation of the certificate of occupancy they received. It is not a violation of the rent stabilization ordinance. I think that's a very important point because under the RSO, rent stabilization ordinance, that does not specify length of stay. So what we are setting them for is the violation of the certificate of occupancy, again, the use. So we're in the preliminary stages of putting together a number of cases for the city attorney's office ultimately to take a look at. I think really at this point we're waiting to see what the mayor and council will do as far as developing a policy thereafter to address. And of course, on the other side, from just a pure policy standpoint, if we look at the number of affordable housing units that we have in the city, with the backdrop of just housing needs across the city, every unit that we lose is one less unit that we have in the community to be able to provide to much-needed Angelino housing. So we're up against it relative to the number of units against the mayor's 100,000 unit goal, while we're trying to preserve every single unit we possibly have. I will also mention that of the properties that have been cited, of the 52, all but 2 are subject to the rent stabilization ordinance. So they're older buildings pre-78. So at this point, again, we're still working with the city attorney's office and the police department to try to figure out next steps as to how we address this. But ultimately, again, it's going to require a policy decision by the mayor and council how they want to address this, much like other cities around the state have done.
You indicated that you did not believe that this was a violation of the RSO.
That is correct.
That basis for that is?
The basis is that they are utilizing the units for residential use. The rent stabilization ordinance does not specify the amount of time that one can stay, and that's the problem.
Right, but the price, isn't that determined in the RSO?
No, the price is actually under the RSO, the rents are stabilized, and the property owner is allowed to raise the rent upon those units being vacated. So basically, they will go up to the market rent level at that point. The RSO basically caps the amount that the property owner can raise that rent to. It has nothing to do with the amount of the term.
I understand that. I understand the term's not at issue. The question is whether or not the increased rental rate violates the RSO.
No, there's no bearing on that. Every time it becomes vacated, the property owner can then get the market rate level, whatever the market will bear.
All right. Other questions?
Just on the RSO, so the RSO, the way the ordinance is currently drafted, says that if it becomes vacated, you can adjust it to market.
Correct.
There isn't a time frame by which it has to be under RSO.
No, there is not.
And so and it's all data construction that triggers when?
Yeah, pre-78, and that's
Pre-78.
and that represents approximately 85% of the 760,000 units we have in the city. It's a huge percentage.
Now, the violation of the certificate of occupancy, does that violation hinge on the distinction between a residential and a commercial use?
That is correct. So either way, whether we were to go today forward with a change to the rent stabilization ordinance to clarify length of stay, it doesn't really matter because they're either in violation of the RSO or they're in violation of the certificate of occupancy. So they're already in violation already. It's just a matter of how the city is going to proceed to bring those property owners back into compliance.
So today, typically, how do we enforce violations of the certificate of occupancy?
Well, there's two avenues. There's the single family and the multifamily. We can only speak to the multifamily side. And again, what we respond to are complaints that they're being utilized in a manner which is not consistent with their certificate of occupancy. We go out and inspect, and then we cite those property owners, give them a notice to correct.
And that's through the SCEP process?
That is correct. It's either through the periodic inspection or it's through a complaint inspection.
Okay.
Complaint inspection. So what we've received, Councilman, of late it's just primarily through the complaint inspections. We receive complaints, we go out and inspect those properties, and then we cite them, and then we give them approximately 5 to 6 weeks to rectify the problem, and we schedule a date to inspect it once again thereafter. And upon our return, if they've satisfied the certificate of occupancy, then they're giving a clean bill of health.
So this is intended to be provocative. So there's a system in place right now to deal with the certificate of occupancy violation.
Yes.
So do we need to do anything in terms, I know that we're going to hear from stakeholders, but at this very initial point, do we need to do anything as a matter of legislation to put more teeth into our current practices, or do we simply need to ramp up our enforcement of these complaints?
Well, I would say it's more of a conversation with the city attorney's office, and I don't mean to bring another office into the fold, but these are already violations, and it's a matter of which the city needs to be able to secure the necessary evidence in order for the city attorney's office to be able to then prosecute. At this point, we don't have the ability to get that type of information for the city attorney's office, and that's something that we can discuss in a working group as how best to approach that. As I mentioned earlier, one manner of which would be to work with the police department to do an undercover investigation where they would actually secure one of the rooms, one of their credit card, and that would then become evidence that in fact they are operating their building as a Airbnb unit, or the overall building or the individual unit, and therefore then the city attorney's office should have some information to be able to prosecute.
And so to be equally provocative, on the flip side of things, we would need legislation to be able to enable this type of use under existing certificate of occupancies if we as a council decide that we want to allow for short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. We would have to proactively do something to enable that.
Yes, you're going to have zoning issues that we have to look at, not only from the building and safety perspective, but also from the zoning perspective, certainly as relates to multifamily, but even more importantly on the single family. So even though we are citing property owners right now, we know based on the zoning that's currently in place right now, there's no way for them legally to be able to bring them in compliance because they'd have to get a zoning variance. And there's a separate process, of course, working with the planning department to do that. And as such, right now, we don't have a clear policy beyond what we have now to be able to bring those or change the zoning requirements.
Colleagues? Please.
So I want to join my colleague, Councilman Fuentes, in being an agent provocateur. At this moment, if a landowner is out of compliance, what is the consequence for that person?
We notify the property owner that are non-compliance. We demand that they do bring it into compliance. At this point, beyond that, there is no referral to the city attorney's office until such time that we, as a governing body, develop some alternate approach to be able to, again, provide the appropriate level of documentation in order for the city attorney's office to take action. So we, as a department under our jurisdiction, don't have the means by which to do that. We've made some initial contact with the Los Angeles Police Department to see if they could assist us, and that dialogue still is ongoing. But at this point, there is no agency that can generate that type of evidence to be able to provide the city attorney's office to then ultimately hold those property owners accountable. We're relying upon those property owners based on our notification from us that they bring them into compliance. But beyond that, if they say no, we have no teeth by which, or no legal basis by which to bring them into compliance.
So that's fascinating.
That's one way to put it.
So earlier you talked about a number of properties that that people had made reports. So when a citizen makes a report and you go and check it out and you find out that it's a problem, you just go and make a suggestion that they stop.
Again, we issue the notice to correct, and to the extent that we can hold them accountable, we will. If we have a lien on it, such as through our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we can certainly call the note, but in many instances, which is the majority of the housing stock in the city, we don't have any legal right to their loan, so therefore we are really subject to a legal due process. And right now, in working with the city attorney's office, we're not quite there yet to be able to bring or compel those property owners to bring them into compliance if they're not willing to.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I'm sorry, on that point, if I could just, so it's beginning to crystallize a little bit more for me. So it really is the burden is on the city. I mean, there was the chuckle, but the burden is on the city of Los Angeles to prove that the certificate of occupancy is being violated, which is why we're currently, for better or worse, hamstrung from really proceeding to the city attorney's office.
That is correct.
So it's incumbent upon us potentially to figure out how it is that we give them the resources to do, as you mentioned a second, the undercover, whatever it is, to demonstrate that they're violating the CFO.
Right.
If we could demonstrate that, then we would be able to actually remedy some of the concerns that we have in communities.
We could request the city attorney's office then to proceed with prosecution as necessary.
So along those lines, you know, coming back to the RSO example, so let's say the facility doesn't get vacated, the unit doesn't get vacated. How is there a mechanism in place today for us to see if folks are subletting their unit? Because to me, that seems to be, I read somewhere there was a very entrepreneurial spirit for some folks where they would surf somebody's couch for a little while, sublet a unit. I don't know if it was RSO, but the same example would stand true here. And then they would effectively be violating the RSO if there was an RSO in that situation.
To the best of my knowledge, Councilman, there is no means by which to track that. We track the rent levels and the rent increases, if there are any rent increases. The subletting of a sofa or an additional bedroom is really a contractual agreement between the property owner and the tenant.
And so the RSO doesn't, I mean, I could see why we wouldn't want to speak to that because we would dissuade folks from sharing a unit.
Right.
But the RSO is silent on subletting.
Well, it is, and to the best of my knowledge, and I see Anna in the corner of my eye that could maybe answer that question even better than I can, but I can tell you, Councilman, that we as a department, when we enforce the RSO, it's a matter, again, the rent levels, not necessarily the number of people that are occupying those units, and it really goes back to the contractual agreement between the landlord and tenant. Anna, did you have anything further to add to that?
So I just, and I'll be quiet because I think the community stakeholder process that we're going to ensue in, and, thank you to Mr. Huizar and Mr. Cedillo for being the two committees that are going to be largely responsible for the legislative suggestions. I think that's going to really ferret out some additional sort of thoughts on this, because I do think that there's a room, pardon the pun, for this type of housing and rental use. I really do, but it has to be a way that is demonstrable to us so that we can regulate it and make sure that we're not impacting the quality of life. And then when you're talking about housing stock in general, it's got to be with balance in mind. I mean, we don't want to crowd out communities for one type of resident, short-term or long-term. So this is going to be a real doozy. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun, I think, from a policy perspective, to try to understand.
It certainly
painful
will.
for all of us to live through.
And certainly we hate to sit up here and tell you to the extent of what we can and unfortunately what we're unable to do. And it's not but for lack of trying. We can take it to the extent that we can. But I think also all departments, including elected offices, are cognizant of the fact that this is a brewing issue, that some serious policy decisions are going to be made. So to go forth and start aggressively going after this without really having a global conversation as to how we're going to address this is probably some of the reasons why we are where we are right now, and it's timely. If this was going to continue on for a year without having any sort of policy, then of course I think that we'd really have to immediately crack down and figure out some way. But I think that having a comprehensive discussion as how we're going to address this from a policy perspective is critical.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Price.
Mr. Chair?
Mr.
I just think, Mr. Chair, if you pardon me, I imagine I'm out of order here, but
Yeah, you are.
I raised the issue about consequences because on the other side of this coin is at least a part of the problem with this kind of use is it takes units off the market, at least in some cases, right?
Yes, it
Which
does.
theoretically drives up the problem we have with homelessness. And for people on the street who don't own property, we've been very quick to say what the consequences should be. And so I think in this discussion, we need to keep that in mind because the two things are not disconnected. They are connected. And so I think if we're going to be serious about regulating this and making housing available for people who need houses, that we ought to consider as strong a measure as we possibly can.
Certainly. Our department has very strong positions on this matter, and at such time that we're asked to report specifically on what our recommendations we will be at the table.
Mr. Fuentes, you know that on the policy matters, I frequently rush to the conclusion and try to bypass the process, but because I think we can do more. I think we're in a time of crisis. I think that the department can do more. I don't think there's a prohibition. I've seen the city attorney, for example, try to move people out of a perfectly well-built home, out of their own volition, believing that a violation had taken place of some building permit or something, and only could a court stop him. So I think there's more that we can do. But if people don't believe that they can or aren't prepared to do that, then we will make the instructions and the policy recommendations more explicit. Mr. Fuentes is right. We have to find a balance. Obviously, we want the city to remain attractive, and this is a global phenomenon, but what is not, or at least for us, we are also in a housing crisis, and that takes precedent for us, or I'll speak for myself. And so we will not lose one unit of housing for that purpose, and so we need to move forward with this. It's time for a public comment, and I'll call people up, but thank you.
Certainly.
Okay. Vanessa Johnson. Johnson, you're going to be joined by Amanda Seward and Roy Saman. Amanda and Roy. Are you standing up, Roy? Are you Roy?
She's on the way.
Okay.
She's on the way.
I got it. That's what the O's for. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. Many of you I have talked to before, and I know you know all my story. And I came here basically about to tell my story again, but after sitting here listening to the council, I understand what you're going through. I am a host in South Los Angeles, and I have lived in South Los Angeles for more than 50 years. And hosting is very important to me because it allowed me to be the caregiver for my husband. And now my husband has since passed, and I'm living on basically a widow's pension. So I need to continue to be able to host in order to maintain my home and pay taxes. And the other thing that, you guys don't know is, as senior citizens, we are.
Go ahead. Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Okay. We are mostly senior citizens that are hosts. There are a lot of senior citizens use hosting to supplement their income. So we're your constituents. We're the ones that vote, the senior citizens. So, you're hurting the most people that are putting you here on this council.
Ms. Jensen, I'll speak for myself, but I don't think what you're doing is what the committee's concerned about. I think you are doing what is okay and approved. We're looking at the abuses.
I understand.
You're not putting your unit off the market. You're not abusing the process. You're conducting yourself in a way that
And
we
most
all-
hosts are not abusing the process.
Right.
Airbnb, I started out in Airbnb in the beginning. Our concept in the beginning was to be host and hostesses. We did not step into an area to take housing off the market, and that's not what we meant to be.
We understand that. Thank you. Amanda Seward, please.
Yes, I'm Amanda Seward. I'm an attorney. I don't consider myself a housing attorney, but in the past month alone, I've taken 5 cases where there's been abuse. And again, I have nothing against the previous speaker's practice. We're not talking about true sharing. We're talking about the displacement of tenants from their rent-controlled units is what is happening in Venice right now. Landlords are simply refusing to replace long-term tenants when they leave, and shamefully, they are trying their best to harass them until they leave. I've seen everything from a refusal to make repairs to taking away parking spots. I'm here because these tenants face retaliation if the property owner knows that they are speaking out. Tenants are very vulnerable right now, and we do need to shore up the law and make it clear what the violations are and go after the bad players.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray, Saman, and Steve Clare.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Roy Saman. I'm a research and policy analyst with the LA Alliance for a New Economy. I'm also the lead author on Lane's recently released reports analyzing the short-term rental industry here in Los Angeles. To keep our conclusions in brief here, we found the number of commercial units advertised in the Los Angeles area is equivalent to 63% of all new housing built over a 4-year period. Building a path out of the housing crisis that we've heard a lot about today is not going to work if the commercial short-term rental growth continues to undermine new housing construction at those rates. We're just not going to make it. There are thousands of short-term rental listing agents in the city, but 4 companies account for 92% of the market's advertised listings right now.
How many companies?
4 companies. So I urge the committee to craft a comprehensive policy that applies both to the individual listing agents as well as to the companies that advertise those commercial listings. I support the motion, and I urge some strong implementation. Thank you.
Mr. Clare.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Clare. I'm the Executive Director of the Venice Community Housing Corporation, a housing and community development organization created and operated on the west side of Los Angeles. Venice Community Housing supports this motion, urges the city to act quickly to clarify the obligations of hosts and the platforms that hosts utilize to market their rentals. If the city chooses to conduct meetings throughout the city to obtain additional input regarding a new ordinance, we urge you that the city vigorously enforce the existing ordinances that prohibit the conversion of rental housing to commercial hotels. Venice Community Housing urges that you create a private right of action to enforce the law. According to the Lane report, there are already over 11,000 whole units that have been converted illegally to hotel use. The city does not have the resources, or perhaps it will, you've heard, to enforce its current ordinance itself. There are many city residents who have been and will continue to be negatively impacted by this illegal activity and are anxious to help with enforcement. Please give us the tools to help. And finally, let me just say that we support the concept of home sharing as represented by the motion on the provision that the host reside on the site except for vacation periods of limited duration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Harvey Slater, Sylvia Shane, and Jane Taguchi.
Good morning. I'm Harvey Slater. I'm a single primary residence home share and a homeowner in Highland Park in CD1. I've heard a lot of talk today about homelessness and housing. The truth is that most of us are just a couple mortgage payments away from homelessness. Every morning I wake up and I thank God that I have my own home and I'm able to live in a beautiful community. And home sharing, a bedroom in my house, helps us pay our mortgage. It helps us stay in our home. When a homeowner stays in their home, they don't rent a unit. So home sharing, the way we do it, as single-family home sharing is actually good for housing because it's keeping people off the rental market. I want to address the transient occupancy tax. Right now, the city is missing out on a really big opportunity to collect a lot of money from tourists who are getting a free ticket in Los Angeles right now. And that money could be used to benefit and address big problems in my district. Councilmember Cedillo, I know you're aware of this. We can use that money to help these affordable housing issues that are plaguing our neighborhoods. And this can just really be a positive thing for the city. We can really do a lot with that transient occupancy tax and make a difference for people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Sylvie Shane. I live at the Villa Carlotta in Hollywood. It's a historic landmark. I'm currently being Ellised, and I am really concerned about the loss of affordable housing, specifically with regards to Ellis, and I know that the council is discussing enforcement issues with regards to that act. Currently, as it stands, the Airbnb allowance allows property owners, such as ours, to effectively circumvent Ellis re-rental provisions for 5 years by using Airbnb. That's one of the tactics. Incidentally, our property owner owns the duplex behind the Villa Carlotta, and they have been Airbnb-ing it for the last year. As well, because I'm now looking for a new housing accommodations. I went and visited buildings within my area of Hollywood and came upon the Cherokee building that is managed by the Artiste Apartments, and actually personally experienced. They showed me actually their Airbnb units just to show me models of some of the housing units that were going to be coming available. So I witnessed that firsthand. Thank you.
Jane Taguchi, Bryce Fuji, and Cynthia Strathman.
I'm going to cede my time to Judith Goldman.
We don't do that. Let a card and come up if she wants.
I'm Jane Taguchi, a 19-year resident of Silver Lake. Los Angeles has become the least affordable rental market in the country, and it's getting worse due to illegal rogue hotel operators, landlords turning apartments into vacation units. Tenants are harassed to leave their rent-controlled homes. Then the landlord can rent them short-term for 5 times more. Commercial investors are stockpiling our city's housing by converting to STRs rather than having long-term tenants, like the owners of the house across the street from me, who have taken 4 units off the market since 2013. Even some renters are going into the business by illegally subletting their apartments. This means higher rents, fewer homes on the market. Almost 11,000 units removed from the city's housing stock are now STRs, equivalent to 63% of the housing built in LA in the last 4 years, a loss of 11 units per day since October 2014. Students, artists, lower income and fixed income residents who can't compete with vacationers' budget should just pack their bags now. Out of control, short-term rentals are negatively impacting housing. Proper regulation is sorely needed. Please help stop the bleeding.
Bryce Fuji and Cynthia Strathman, please come up. And Lisa Moncure. Lisa? is Cynthia Strathman. No. Nice.
I'm Bryce Fujii, an Airbnb host for the last 3 years. Home sharing allows me to keep my Canoga Park single-family home of 21 years. But the impact is multiplied through community businesses that, like two-thirds of Airbnb listings, are far from popular tourist attractions or hotels. My last guests came from New Delhi, India, a father and daughter's first trip to the U.S. to seek restorative surgery for the daughter who suffered bad burns by a fire. My home is less than 2 miles from the Grossman Burn Center and was a key factor in their decision to travel to the United States. They spent over $35,000 cash on the first surgery alone, plus thousands more at local businesses. I introduced them to a nearby favorite, Royal Delhi Palace, where they dined regularly, even treating me several times. I urge you to pass legislation supporting a homeowner's right to share his primary residence. As vital ambassadors for LA, we welcome the global community and promote mom and pops to generate $178 million in incremental local sales that would diminish or disappear without home sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to fit this all into 1 minute. I'm Lisa. I live in Mount Washington, and I've lived there for about 25 years. And I live in a house that was built in 1923. It has a mother-in-law apartment, so on the books, it's a duplex, right? But it's a very intimate living situation. I have seen my neighborhood in Mount Washington and Highland Park transformed over the last decade with the flipping of houses. I feel like Airbnb builds community. I have some people that were my Airbnb guests that have actually moved in and they're living there permanently now. They're caring for my 80-year-old neighbor. They came to town because her mother was dying of breast cancer and has since passed. They're beautiful people, and I love them in my neighborhood. They're from Trinidad. I think that there does need to be some regulation, but I really look forward to giving more input and hopefully working on you with this with you together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Simon, Chauncey Martorell, and Christine Nolte. Sir. Yes.
Hi, Mark Simon. I'm a 23-year resident in my apartment in Los Feliz, currently being Ellised by the landlord, and would like to very much second what Sylvie Shane was saying about giving some teeth to the ability for the city to have some check on what's going on with landlords being to circumvent the givens of the Ellis Act by using Airbnb. I wasn't even as aware of that. Sylvie has made me aware of that. I am also in our neighborhood. It's Airbnb is devastating Los Feliz. On our block alone, there are 2 other buildings where the landlord is buying out the long-term tenants and turning them into Airbnbs. And you've got to, it just doesn't seem like rocket science, as several people have said, to notice between what's right and what is exploitive. Thanks.
Thank you. Chauncey?
Yes, hello there. My name is Chanchinit Martorell. I'm the Executive Director of the Thai Community Development Center. We're a nonprofit founded over 21 years ago with the primary mission of lifting people out of poverty. And one of the ways we have done that is by developing affordable housing. We also work in the community of Hollywood, and in LA Times report, some parts of Hollywood, more than 40% of the housing stock is currently listed on Airbnb for short-term rental use, and the trend is not slowing down. The fact of the matter is that most short-term rentals are taking entire homes and apartments off the market to rent out to tourists. 89% of the revenue from LA listings on Airbnb are generated from the rental of entire homes or apartments. These are listed and owned by vacation rental companies or small entrepreneurs, so the abuses are very clear. In fact, the problem is even much bigger than just Airbnb. The increase in the number of rentals now includes listings from sites like Vacation by Rental Owner, Home Away, and many more. So I'm here to support a very comprehensive policy that will stress more teeth in enforcement and a right to private action. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher?
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Christopher Nolte with Airbnb's public policy team. Thank you to Council Member Cedillo, Council Member Bonin, and Council President Wesson for their thoughtful work on this issue to date. You know, LA is a really special place for our company and for our community of hosts. Some of our first hosts and guests are Angelenos, and many of them are still part of our growing community. I'm proud to be joined by dozens of Airbnb hosts this afternoon in this room and 2 overflow rooms, in fact, who are among the thousands of Angelenos sharing the home in which they live, and by doing so are able to make ends meet and while hosting visitors from across the world. But recently, 2 Lane reports have suggested that the folks behind me are commercial operators who are quote-unquote removing housing from the market. These reports distort the truth at best and are misleading at worst. The reality is our community is not commercial. They are middle class. They are folks like you and me and the other people in this room. How many of you share the home in which you live? Or share it while you're away?
I do, but I don't charge them for it.
In fact, 80% of entire unit listings on our platform are rented out fewer than 90 nights per year. We believe that affordability and housing costs are real important issues, and we're committed to working with this committee and the broader council on smart, fair regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Goldman, Veronica Perez, and Richard Sylvester? Richard R. Sylvester? Judy Goldman.
Mr. Chairman, as folks are coming up, I'm going to have to excuse myself. I have committee at 2:30. Thank you.
I'm Judy Goldman, co-founder of Keep Neighborhoods First, and I've had the very sad experience of hearing from many, many people who are either being harassed or evicted from their homes. So I just want to start with that. A number of these people are afraid to complain because they're afraid of retribution by their landlords. But I want to say that the loss of housing at the rate of 11 units a day to short-term rentals is really tragic. Short-term rental platforms complain that our numbers are not accurate, yet they refuse to be transparent and to disclose their records. We believe the only way the city can successfully regulate short-term rentals is to mandate this transparency and make sure that the disclosure of key data happens. Platforms, we believe, must be held accountable. These are multi-billion-dollar businesses, and they must be accountable like any other business that operates in our city. We appreciate the city earmarking funds for affordable housing, but the preservation of our existing housing, our housing stock that we need desperately, should be a starting point for any new regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Veronica Perez, representing Neighborhoods First. You've heard testimony from hosts who say they rent out their spare rooms to supplement their income. And of course, that's who rose their hand. That's who they brought into the room today. What you're not hearing from is that most of the profit is being made from investors and landlords of rent control properties who have figured out it's more profitable to turn affordable housing into illegal hotels. Since last October, the number of people renting out a spare room has declined sharply from 52% to 36%, and it keeps on dropping. We are hearing these stories firsthand every day. It is absolutely happening. At the last hearing, STR Interest said they could generate up to $30 million in TOT. Let's do the math here. With the city's 14% TOT tax rate, the STR revenue would have to be $215 million to generate $30 million. So these companies are either being disingenuous about the amount they could pay in taxes, or they're proving our very point that there are far more STR units in the city, including illegal ones, than they are admitting to. They're not raising $215 million in revenue from a senior citizen's spare room. They're just not.
Thank you. Judy Goldman.
I just spoke.
Veronica Perez. Thank you. Richard Sylvester. Thank you. Bill. Please join us. Okay. Thelma Perez. Where are you, sir?
I'm Bill Prisleck.
Please.
Right here?
Sure.
All right. Thank you for taking your time to work on my name, because it gave me time to get from the overflow room.
Yes.
My name is Bill Prisleck. I'm the Executive Director of Power, People Organized for West Side Renewal. We do community organizing in the West Side, including in Venice, where we've seen a huge proliferation of Airbnb units and other short-term rental operations that have taken entire apartment buildings off the RSO market and converted them illegally into hotels. And we've seen folks lose their homes. So we want to support the strongest possible regulations to keep our affordable housing and keep folks in rent-controlled units. And I want to make a technical point that west of Lincoln Boulevard in the coastal zone, the Mello Act, state law regulating affordable housing, prohibits the conversion of residential uses to commercial uses that are non-coastal dependent. So if you can do it in Palm Springs, like a hotel, it's not coastal dependent. So anything west of Lincoln Boulevard, conversions to hotels just can't be allowed under state law. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Telmi Perez. I'm with the LA Human Right Housing Collective. We have been working to attempt to preserve RSO units in the city. Airbnb and the short-term rental market is effectively taking thousands of units of RSO housing off of the market and displaced thousands of tenants as well. So I heard you all talking a little bit about how effective it would be, or the need, actually the housing department talking about the need for knowing what kinds of rents are being taken off the rental market. So I think that it's very important that any Airbnb policy or any short-term rental policy go hand in hand with the rent registry for the city of Los Angeles. And we don't want to see these illegal hotels displacing long-term tenants. So thank you.
Thank you. Steve Diaz? Yes, sir.
I'll be real fast. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Steve Diaz, and I'm here with the LA Right to Housing Collective and the Los Angeles Community Action Network. We feel that it's really important that this council take action to preserve RSO housing units. The short-term rental market is taking away from housing stock that could be used as a place called home for individuals, not a temporary place, and it's really important that this council continue to take leadership on this issue and really protect RSO housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, that concludes.
You're pressing me. I need to record myself. My name is Rainer Redondo.
Just relax. I don't see your card and under this stack of 4 that I have. Okay? And we're discussing 4. I have a stack here for general and a stack for 5. Okay? I don't doubt your word at all. I'm just telling you what I'm looking at. Okay? So just calm down and I'll look for this. And I have a new stack here. All right?
Sorry,
That's all right. Understand. So I have a new stack here of 4s that were O. I assume that means overflow. The 4s and 5s are mixed, okay? And we're not going to do anything other than just go patiently through these, all right?
Sure. Thank you, sir.
So these are done. Bill again on 4. Penelope Lopez. Justin Hales. Mark Lipman. Mark, as you come up, we were still waiting for Penelope Lopez, if you're in the overflow, and Justin Hales. Yes, please. You're Penelope?
Yes, I am.
Yes, good to see you. And Justin?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark?
Hi, good afternoon. First, I'd like to address something that you members brought up, is about consequences. Currently, we've lost 11,000 housing units, affordable housing units here in Los Angeles. Where I come from in the Venice coastal zone, that is 1,200 of those units have been lost in the Venice coastal zone, over 10%. And how this affects our community is it wipes out our ability to rent housing in our coastal zone. And people have mentioned this TOT, the Transit Occupancy Tax. We've been notified that due to the short-term rental, we're going to get an extra $808 million in tax from this. And that gloriously, 10 million of that is going to go to housing. Now, when you take 1,200 units that have been lost and put up, well, we gain 10 million for housing, right. Just do the numbers. We're not getting anywhere close to that number of units back from this TOT tax. It's
Got it.
Yeah, you got that? Thank you
Got it.
very much.
It doesn't balance, right?
Yeah.
We're closing public comment now, okay? So,
I don't get a chance?
no. Yes, you do. No. Everybody's got a card in.
Okay.
We're good, but we're not taking extra. Well, we have to get there,
I'm new to this one.
okay? Just hold on. Penelope, please go.
Okay. I know there's a shortage of housing, but you also got to focus on the issues of the homeowners able to still live in their own homes. Like during the bubble crisis, it's like my parents almost lost their home. And we were able to still keep our home by using Airbnb. We were able to do entrepreneur skills and also learn more tech. And it make education more affordable because of Airbnb. It also make, like, some of the people that goes in our neighborhood in Lincoln Heights, they're not there like for West Hollywood. They're there for USC. They want to go to the schools. We have a bunch of doctors who are there for internships or for interviews. That's the people who we get, and they're there for short term. So the way I see it, we're having great people coming in, but also still be able to keep our homes.
Thank you, Penelope. Don?
Thank you. My name is Justin Hales, and I'm a sales manager at AE Hospitality. And we manage short-term rentals and corporate housing throughout the city of Los Angeles in a multitude of neighborhoods. We've been in business for 5 years and have 14 full-time employees, 20 part-time employees. We also work with contractors that we use to meet various needs. All of our staff make above minimum wage, and AE Hospitality provides us with multiple benefits, including insurance and school reimbursement. And more importantly, AE Hospitality helps provide for our families. Personally, I've been with the company for over 2.5 years, and I enjoy waking up every day knowing that I'm an ambassador for this wonderful city. And I enjoy my love for the city of LA and share that with our guests.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Lipman, Scott Douglas, and Greta Vian. Mark Lipman, Scott Douglas, and Greta Vian. Greta, please join us. Scott?
Yes.
Please join us. And we're waiting Mr. Lipman. Last call, Mark Lipman. Okay. Okay. Please.
Hi, my name is Greta. I'm 15 years old, and my mom and I started Airbnb-ing our house about 9 months ago. And at the time, she was working until 10 or 11 at night, a lot of weekends too, and so I never got to see her. And that's really important to me because my parents are divorced, so I only get half my life with her. And so the time that I have is really valuable. And we started Airbnb-ing, and we rented out our back bedroom, and they have a bathroom, and we shared the common room, you know, the kitchen and living room and all that. And since then, she's home at 7:30 every night, and we get to have dinner together. And we're actually going away this weekend, which is the first time in a long time. And so, yeah, it's been able to really turn our lives around, and it's really special to me. And not only this, but we get to explore these other people's lifestyles while sharing our home with them. So.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Scott Douglas. I just want to talk on behalf of Airbnb. You've all heard today, the different problems that we have in Hollywood with the rental markets. Down the block from my house, there's a 42 apartment building, and they have 36 of those apartments taken off the market for Airbnb. Landlord is essentially running a micro hotel. I want to talk to you about people like me who use Airbnb to supplement my income while I'm on vacation. We all know the guy in New York tells you the rent is too damn high, and that's a problem in Los Angeles. Last year, I was able to take a vacation, travel Europe, experience Europe, and not worry about my rent back home in Los Angeles while I was doing that. The money that I had saved, I was able to take that money and purchase a custom engagement ring and propose to my now fiancée. She said yes. So I implore you to consider getting rid of these micro hotels while allowing people like me to continue the ability to use Airbnb.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank both of you. Thanks. Stephanie Woods, Mark Malin. We've heard from Sylvie, right?
Yes.
Senor, what is your name?
Me?
Hmm? Ismael? Okay. Stephanie?
Yes.
Please join us.
Thank you.
Mark Malin, please join us. And Mark Davis. Davis, please proceed. Stephanie?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Stephanie Woods. I'm a 67-year-old woman who's a 50-year resident of Echo Park. 3 years ago, after caring for my parents until they passed away, I found myself without savings and living on my Social Security and having the duplex that I own as being the one main way of supplementing my income. I was really facing bankruptcy and the loss of my home. And literally, without Airbnb, I would be a member of a homeless shelter downtown right now. But because of Airbnb, I have been able to stabilize my income. I've been able to entertain people from all over the world and become an ambassador for the city of Los Angeles, which has been an incredible experience for me, especially at my age. And I haven't been able to travel much in my life, so these people bring such a rich experience to me.
Thank you.
Not to mention giving you guys $17,000 in the last 3 years through the TOT.
Sir.
Hi, my name is Mark. Before I start, can I get somebody from the council to give me a definition on
No.
affordable housing? No?
No. Please, you're happy to take your testimony on the subject matter.
Well, I was surprised that you couldn't answer my question, but
We're not
okay.
going to answer your question, sir.
Yeah, I get that.
Take
Okay,
opportunity.
well,
I welcome you to take opportunity of your time to speak to us, please, on this matter.
I got nothing. Thanks.
Javier Caño and Barbara Blinderman. Sir?
Good afternoon, Chairman Cedillo. My name is Mark Davis, the General Manager at the Hilton Universal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here today to support Mike Bonins and the committee's effort to regulate the issue that's before us today. I know you've heard from the Plum Committee last week, and you're hearing today concerns both for homeowners that are trying to keep their home, from businesses that feel like they're being treated unfairly because of taxes. My voice is I'm concerned about the safety, the life safety of issues, the issues that regulation will control. I admonish you to take this up, take it seriously, look at the regulation and also the enforcement while you're doing the regulation to make sure that it is fair for all businesses, but we also look at the life safety that is not being regulated at all and putting people and their lives at risk.
Okay. We're happy to take any suggestions from you or your industry, compare apples to apples, and see how we can benefit from
Love
that.
to be a part of that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Javier Cano. I'm the General Manager of JW Marriott here in downtown Los Angeles, and I'm here to talk also as a hotel general manager and the impact this is having on hotels. We've heard a lot of very valid concerns today that I am concerned about, as many have mentioned, the short-term rental abuses, the non-in-home short-term renters that are operating as commercial lodging units. And these facilities should be subject to similar set of rules and regulations that hotels like ours is. This means that they should have to pay taxes. They should take and have to be in compliance with the same set of health, zoning, wage, accessibility that Los Angeles hotels are required to be a part of. Short-term rental facilities don't pay any TOT, even though they operate in the same way that hotels do. Our Los Angeles area hotels obviously provide a great deal of high-paying jobs, and for us it's an issue of fairness. We appreciate your taking a look at this issue in detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good to see you here. And if you guys have, from your industry's perspective, suggestions for the committee, we're happy to receive them in writing.
And we'd be happy to do so. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Blinderman?
That's me, yes. First of all, my name is Barbara Blinderman, and I really appreciate the quality of the questions and comments that have been made by the committee. This is a tough issue, and you seem to be asking all the right questions. I'm opposed to this motion mainly because I don't know what you're going to come up with in an ordinance, and when it's watered down and comes to us, I want to be able to object. What we're looking for is regulation, registration, enforcement, and some kind of fair financing. I hope you can. One final comment is that apparently the enforcement provisions talked about before was only multi-unit. I'd like to know where single-family people can complain to get enforcement there. Thank you very much.
And Ms. Blinderman, we're happy to take, you delineated your suggestions. If you want to give those to the committee in writing also in a more elaborate manner, we'd be happy to receive them.
Thank you very much.
And that applies to any witness that's come before us today. I know we try to keep the comments down to a minute, and that may frustrate some of our witnesses. You're always welcome to provide written testimony to augment the time that you spend with us. Okay, Matthew Post, Robert Amando, Ismael Arredondo. Yes, sir.
I'm Matthew Post, president of the Benedict Canyon Association, which represents 2,400 homes, and a board member of the Beverly Hills, or Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. Benedict Canyon is a 100% R1 zone, legalizing short-term rentals in the hillside. Canyon will forever change the landscape and the safety of the community and the types of future homes built. There's currently a house on Benedict Canyon which is literally built like a hotel and is being operated one. I created a handout of the property to leave with you to show the severity of the issue. This house is listed on Airbnb 20 different ways. It is listed as Beverly Hills Resorts and Pool, Beverly Hills Events and States Event, Events Space, Italy Suites, and surf lessons, to name a few, with a wide range of packages and amenities that include a Bentley to show you the town. Legalizing short-term rentals in the hillside, where money doesn't seem to be an issue, will create a building frenzy of single-family homes built like in a hotel configuration, many of which will be built on substandard streets that are throughout the hillside community. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Ismael Arredondo. I'm the president of Argyll Civic Association, which is in Hollywood Hills and Hollywood, and affects us in 3 different areas that have been mentioned here. Number 1, people who live for several years, 20, 30 years, and they've been tried to be evicted and harassed to leave the property. The owner uses now 2 of them as a 4 duplex, is using the 2 of them as a B&B. So that's to give it to say, and we don't even know who they are because constantly rotating. The other one is about family or people who live in the property, and they do that, which I don't see any wrong with that because it's a supply to survive. And the other one is right now on Argyll Street, they're building a 220 units for a hotel. What are they going to do if this is proliferating, growing up? They're not going to be in business. So in those 3 areas we're going to be affected. So please in consideration this.
Yes.
Thank
and
you
again,
very
we
much.
welcome your written comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Robert.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Cedillo, honorable members of the committee. We'll keep this short. We have submitted, this Hotel Association has submitted a written letter to all committee members and also posted to the file. So please take time to review that. While I'm here, I would like to reiterate that the association has never opposed business operations. We are merely concerned that there are some safety and health and safety issues. But above more that, as we hear today, there's a lot of abuses being taken from this concept. Again, the sharing economy is here. Obviously, there's challenges to that. We've embraced those challenges. So while we are at the table and making constructive discussion on this topic, we'll be happy to work with you on our industry's take on what might be in the provisions as we move along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. I'm going to call up Sheila Nam, Robert St. Genis, and Chris Stone.
Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
My name is Sheila Nim. I'm a policy analyst with Trust South LA, a community-based land trust. Our work is really driven by LA's growing housing scarcity problem. And so we reviewed the idea to use taxes generated from short-term rentals to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I'm here to tell you that we've determined that the revenue generated in this way would not even begin to address the problems that short-term rentals are contributing to. Right now, we're losing housing at a rate of 11 units per day to short-term rentals, and even $5 million in taxes generated would only fund 70 units through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That really represents only a fraction, less than 1% of the almost 11,000 units taken away so far. To bring it home, it would really take less than a week to lose those units at that same rate as if we were to build those 70 units. So in closing, I encourage the council to act on the challenges created by short-term rentals and to not create a short-sighted and inadequate response because of the immediate need to identify sources for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert?
Hi, I'm Robert St. Genis from the Los Angeles Short-Term Rental Alliance. I wanted to talk about some flawed statistics. First of all, taking the day of listings on Airbnb in one day in October does not make a study, which is how the Lane study was put together initially. Vacation management rental companies don't typically own properties. They manage other people's properties, and they've been made the sacrificial lambs in this whole process. Responsible management is a key to making STRs work, and it's a key objective of LOSTRA, and vacation rental management companies help achieve that goal with ironclad contracts, greeting guests, and having availability 24 hours a day if something goes awry. They also collect TOT and are paying TOT as well now, many of them. $30 million, by the way, is a number that is from our economic impact study and reflects the whole county. Obviously, the city of Los Angeles would be the largest recipient of that. We strongly support the idea of that money being placed to help, not to cure, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund shortage. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Stone, please.
Thank you,
Chris
council
Stone.
members. My name is Chris Stone. I'm the general manager at Globe Homes and Condos. Our business has been in operation since 2007. We have over 18 full-time employees, 2 part-time. This is in addition to numerous contractors we use to meet various needs, cleaning, maintenance, furniture installation, to say the least. All of our staff makes above minimum wage. We provide all of our employees with benefits, insurance, help with schooling, licensing, paid time off. Honestly, it's a company I'm proud to work for. I've been with the company almost 4 years, and over this time I've seen the demand of short-term rentals grow in Los Angeles tremendously. This growth not only has helped the city in the last years, we've paid over $400,000 in transient occupancy tax. We are also on pace to do the same this year. This has allowed my fellow colleagues and I to progress in their professional careers and make a living in Los Angeles. I ask that you consider us when you make these decisions.
Thank you. Kevin Gallagher?
My name's Kevin. I'm 63 years old, married. I have a 4-year-old son. We own a second home in Venice Beach, and we depend on the income we generate from renting it to guests when we're not using it. The current proposal to make it illegal for us to rent our own second home would make it very difficult for us to exist. And so it basically started 3 years ago when my wife and I purchased a single-family residence in Venice Beach that was previously occupied by an owner. That owner then moved one street over and built a new house, so I don't think we displaced anybody in this probably slight anomaly of a model. But shortly after our purchase of the home, I was laid off from my job. 30 interviews, and 3 years later, I still cannot find employment in my field as a sales manager. As I mentioned, I have a young child, 4 years old, married. My wife works occasionally doing interior design for hotels. And we decided to join the short-term rental market as host. And I think that the short-term Rental market has helped. Affordable housing left the barn when Google and Snapchat moved in, and my 4-year-old son says, "Dada, sharing is caring, and caring is sharing."
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne from Encino, Herman, and Brian Barajas before we move into the discussion. What is your name? What is your name? Okay. What? I'll look for it.
Hello. I think the last person that spoke pretty much said it all. And one of the dilemmas that as a nation and other countries are facing is extreme depression. FDR dealt with it. And so I think the overall issue would be how do you, and the word here is not to manage the situation. It's not to say these people are in dire need of an economy, and then you say to yourself that, and this will be the killer, if you say to yourself, how can we manage the crisis? My role is to tell you, how do you cure the crisis? And this goes for both the citizens and their elected officials. And one of the ways is, well, why not get the federal government to issue credit?
Thank you. Sir, can you please come up right now? Yes. Identify yourself for the record.
My name is Robert Schlesinger. Pardon? Oh, okay. I'm a resident of Benedict Canyon, a member of the Benedict Canyon Homeowners Association and the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. This area of the Neighborhood Council in Benedict Canyon is a high fire area, limited to the number of streets for access and everything else, okay? The property devaluation, and we are an R1 residential neighborhood. The entire area is an R1 residential neighborhood. Limiting, insurance in that area, and the majority of the homeowners in that area are California Fair Plan already, all right? The additional traffic on narrow winding streets in these canyons is a major safety issue for all residents. In addition, with California Fair Plan, property devaluation, if Airbnb is identified next to us, property devaluation goes down, and it's an item that must be disclosed when you sell.
Thank you.
I would like to, this is the 1324 Benedict Canyon, that is, you got it? Sorry. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, that concludes public comment on this matter. Comments from...
We want to thank everybody who came and sat through the hearing and told your stories and listened to each other's stories. The stories are very, very meaningful to all of us who are charged with helping make decisions for the city in this regard. I think it's important to remember that the stats mean a lot, but the stories mean a whole lot more, and they really, really stick with us. So I want to thank everybody for coming and sharing.
Okay, gotcha. Mr. Rice.
I too want to thank those of us who are enduring. This is it's a critical issue. Housing is a big issue, certainly in the area that I represent. And I'm very concerned about any activities that would remove housing from the availability people to rent and to buy. And I think that while we certainly want to embrace technology, we have to be mindful of unintended negative impacts. And so these comments, your stories have been very helpful as we look to fashioning an approach that's going to be fair and reasonable, fair, reasonable, and easy to enforce, and to be able to do it in a fair kind of way. So again, I just appreciate the comments, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your leadership on this issue as we collectively grapple with how we address these concerns, not just in one part of the city, but really citywide, because it has really citywide implications for everyone. Thank you.
Chairman Huizar?
I'm fine. I just, we heard this item in Plum I think about a week ago or so, and we have had given some direction there with that included some additional stakeholder meetings, but we want to balance those additional stakeholder meetings with bringing it back as soon as possible to have some action by the full council. So I look forward to those reports back so we could take some action on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I want to instruct HCID to work with planning on a joint report on the impacts of housing, specifically restrictions within the RSO ordinance, and look at this globally, the adverse impacts. And it's for us to figure out how we can reconcile very legitimate interests and concerns. These should not be competing interests, people's desires to protect their homes and home ownership. The aging of our country is something that I've spoken about extensively, particularly in Plum. And the strategies people employ should not be at odds with protecting affordability and the development of affordability and housing within our communities. So both are legitimate concerns, interests, and goals of this committee. And our challenge is how do we reconcile it today and move forward to make sure that we ultimately build sufficient and adequate housing for the entirety of the city. I thank all of you for being here on this item, and so I move that we reconcile or join those two committees for the joint report. Motion?
Okay.
So moved?
Yes, I'll second that. And I believe we had requested 3 community meetings and to come back with a report. So we could, I would suggest, Chairman Cedillo, that when the report comes back, we could probably perhaps have a joint meeting with the HCID and Plum and hear it at the same time if
Yeah, makes sense.
If you desire. Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, motion? Concur? So moved, thank you. We've got item 5.
And item 3, Mr. Chair. Would you like to go to item 5 now or item 3?
Item 5, we're going to continue.
Briefly, just to read it into the record, it's
Yes.
a motion, City of Price, relative to the feasibility of expanding the yearly RSO registration.
Okay. And then item 3, which is a...
Item 3 is a Housing Department report relative to the sale of city-owned residential property located at 118 Valencia Street. And the Housing Department has an amendment on this item.
Okay. So do we need anything?
Good afternoon. My name is... Can I start?
Yeah, please join us.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Mariana Lem, and I'm the Senior Project Coordinator and Manager of the CRA Transition Unit. As part of the transfer of the housing assets of the former redevelopment agency, CRA-LA, HCID accepted quitclaim deeds in May 2013 for 2 vacant condominium units. In April 2014, HCID-LA was authorized to pursue the disposition of these 2 condominium units in the Vista Montoya complex on Council File 12-0018-S1. This afternoon, we're requesting approval of our transmittal report to approve the sale of one of the condominiums located at 1118 Valencia Street, Unit 208, to the selected purchaser. The purchaser is a first-time home buyer and is eligible to receive a mortgage credit certificate from HCID-LA. The MCC will give this buyer a 20% tax credit because of the location of the condominium. In addition, we are requesting an erratum to the transmittal to amend Section 2A to change the wording to request the city attorney to draft an ordinance effectuating the sale of the real property located at 1118 Valencia Street, Unit 208, to Caitlin Chen for its full appraised value of $328,000. Thank you.
Okay, great. You have an amendment?
No, she stated the amendment.
Okay,
I have the amendment right there.
okay. Great, so adopt the report? As amended? Okay, motion? No objection? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, public comment? Item 5, public comment, Jim Clark.
This is item 3.
Oh, this is 3, yeah, we continued that, I'm sorry. Item 3, no public comment? Thank you. Okay, now we have general public comment. Bill, Steve Diaz, and Thelmy Bettis. Bill Przlewski. Bill, will you help me pronounce your name?
You always have my permission just to say Bill from Power. That's
Bill
fine.
from Power.
No,
Okay, thank
we're
you.
lucky, Polish last name.
Bill Polet.
Yeah, so myself, Thelmy, and Steve are going to waive our general public comment. We just wanted to briefly say we support the rent registry.
Thank you. I've also got, 5 is done. Done. We have exhausted public comment. And so we are, item 5. All right, item 5 was continued for the record. If you wish to provide public comment, can we do it next week? If you've come here today for item 5 and you want to make public comment, we've continued the matter, but you are welcome to comment nonetheless. So Robert Schlesinger, who was here earlier, Ismael, I know, Chris Skolson, Beverly Kentworthy, and Steve Clare. They have all exited, and so we will assume waiver. Any other cat and dog? Gentlemen, what can I do for you? You know, Mark, we have exhausted the stack, and I don't see you in here. I'm trusting you, but I don't see it. I don't have it. Do you want to come up here and say something that's so that you don't have to come back next week?
Sure. Thank you very much.
Mark Whitman, right here.
Oh,
Power.
there you go. Yeah, just to get this on the record.
Right. General public. Okay. No, he's item 5. Go ahead.
All right, thanks very much. Mark Lippman with Power, People Who Are Organized for West Side Renewal. I just wanted to let you guys know that this rent registry is incredibly important for the work that we're doing in the community as an organization, and also for the city. By having a clear record of what rents are being paid, who's paying it, we can actually map out where our affordable housing is within our community. It just makes our job so much easier to have this, and it has nothing but benefits for the work that the city is doing also, and it affects every mellow determination case that we have on the coastal zone. So this is very needed for the work that we're doing, and I just encourage you to make sure that this registry happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ryan, you get too close today.
This is for general public comment. I think the intention here overall has to be that a direction that proceeds the matter to not just to, again, you do not want to fix the situation in the manner to which you are accustomed to. That is, you do it step by step, legal by legal basis here and there, while at the same time, a collapse is happening. In other words, how do you subsume the collapse? So my intention for everybody to consider is you may be, in effect, and this is the hard part, wasting your time on legal matters. So let's just talk about how do we get the funding from the top, and I do mean from a government. Otherwise, everything will not work.
Thank you.
Motion? Else here for public comment? General public comment?
We went through that. Motion to adjourn? Please. Thank you. Second? Second. No objection? Thank you. Is this off?